Hey guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas. For today's video, I'm going to be ranking every single palette that I tried in 2021. So if that is something you're interested in seeing, just go ahead and keep watching. My cat is in my lap. She's not gonna make this easy. So if I am not mistaken, there are 45 palettes here. I'm not going to be saying any numbers. I've learned my lesson. I will edit them in afterwards. But I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best. And I'm going to be ranking every palette that I tried in 2021 and not palettes that released in 2021. So there might be some older stuff here that was new to me this year. So that is how I am going to do my ranking. I have seen a couple other people do this video. It's not my original idea, so I will link them down in the description box below. And let's just go ahead and get started at the very bottom. So coming in last place, I had to fish this one out of my declutter, so I think it kind of just fell into this spot. I have the Violet Voss Violet Sunset palette. This is not a horrible palette by any means. The color story's okay. It's kind of bland, but it's actually kind of irritated my eyes a little bit, and this purple shade stained my lids like I have never had an eyeshadow stain my lids. So seeing as though I got rid of this one, I think it just deserves the last place spot. I'm sorry. Violet Voss is just not my favorite eyeshadow formula, which you might see. So next up here, I have the Ace Beauté Nostalgia palette. This came in a BoxyCharm, as did the Violet Voss. Ace Beauté is just not my favorite formula. I don't find myself very aesthetically attracted to their palettes either. They did recently just reformulate everything, so maybe they are better now. I'm only keeping this one because it came in handy at Halloween, and I foresee myself possibly getting some use out of it next Halloween. So not something I'm probably ever going to reach for. Keeping it around because I might maybe need it. Next up, I have the Venus 3 from Lime Crime. This also came in a BoxyCharm. This is not horrible. Color story is okay. I do like pinky purples. It's just so underwhelming. Like, you can't even tell there are shimmer shades in here because they're so dull. They are more satin shades. This one shade in here is really pretty, but like that's where it starts and that's where it ends. I don't foresee myself really reaching for this. I'm holding on to it more for like YouTube purposes. It might be nice to have something from the brand, but it's just not it. Next up, I have one from ColourPop. If you saw my ranking my ColourPop palettes, this might not be a surprise to you. This is the Rumor Has It. It's okay. It's not ColourPop quality. I don't own a lot of blue eyeshadows, and even with that, I probably wouldn't reach for this. So, kind of shocked to see ColourPop one this far down. Next up, we have another Ace Beauté palette, and this is the Falling For You. This is, again, not horrible by any means. I don't know if this is the new and improved formula. This also came in a BoxyCharm, but it's pretty recent. This is okay. It's pretty, it's fall themed, the shimmers are alright. It's just, I don't know. There's something about Ace Beauté that I am just not attracted to as a brand. It's not horrible. It's not like declutter worthy, but it's just, it's not my favorite either. Next up, I am putting this Dido Venus palette. Ditto, I don't know how to pronounce the brand. This also came in a BoxyCharm. This is a pretty solid little palette. The shimmers in here are really pretty. It's got some fun textures, some unique colors. The shimmers are nice. It's definitely unexpected. I used this in the video and I haven't reached for it since, so it is pretty. I do want to keep it around because, you know, I might be in the mood for one of these shades. Just not something I really see myself using all that often. So honestly, not bad. I was actually really impressed with this one. Just not holding up to the rest of the palettes in my collection. Next up, we have another ColourPop palette, and this one is strictly personal preference. Like, quality is there, it swatches beautifully, the packaging is stunning. This color story is just so hard for me. So this is more my lack of ability to use this. It's not a reflection on the palette. I think it's so beautiful. I bought this because I'm like, I don't have a single thing that looks like this. And there's a reason for that because I don't know what to do with it. I've only ever used this once in a palette bingo, so maybe if I like force myself to try to get a look out of this thing, it won't be as intimidating as it seems to me, but it's just, this one is strictly my fault. I don't know what to do with this. Next up, I am putting the Pretty Cool palette from Dose of Colors. These are fairly older palettes, but I did get it in a boxy charm this year. This is really good quality. I don't reach for cool tones a lot, but I was really impressed. I have reached for it maybe once or twice. I think I used it in a Halloween look as well. These are good quality. I don't tend to reach for an all matte palette, but I have tons of single shadows. So having something like this that has an array of cool toned mattes that I can just grab this, put some stuff in my crease, and then throw a nice pretty sparkly single shadow on the lid. This is actually kind of handy to have, so not mad at having this one. Next we have another ColourPop palette, and this one is the Garden Variety. I'm pretty sure I bought it just for the packaging. It's like everything with these like raised succulents on it. This just doesn't really inspire me. It's a little bland. It's okay. It just doesn't stand out enough in my collection. I think I've only used this once. It's not something that I'm like, ooh, I really want to use the Garden Variety palette. I really kind of don't. But it's not bad. Quality is there. Color story is okay. It's just not my favorite. And next up here we have another Violet Voss palette, and this is the I Love You Forever. This one I actually enjoy. I have a newfound love for olive toned eyeshadows, and this was really nice. I used it in my BoxyCharm unboxing video, and I haven't reached for it since, but I can see myself maybe reaching for it. I do have another green tone palette all the way up there. If you know, you know. So I don't know if I would reach for this over that, but this is not bad. I was actually kind of impressed with this one. Next, we have one that might come as a bit of a shock. So many people love this palette. I just do not. I have seen it ranked at the top for some other people. It's just not ranked up there for me. This is the ColourPop X Tinkerbell. First of all, packaging is some of the most stunning packaging of the year. This whole collection was stunning. I just don't love it. And this is not a quality issue. This is great ColourPop quality. This is just not my shade of green. I don't tend to go for like a true grass green, a bright true green. The tones of the mattes in here I don't really like either. This shade is very pale, kind of unnecessary in a palette if you ask me personally. Quality is there. I do really like this kind of gold shimmery shade. This one is stunning, but everything else, like, I just don't see myself really reaching for this. I don't like these kinds of greens, so again, this is personal preference. People love this. It is good quality. It's just not my shade of green. Next, I am putting this little mini palette from Natasha Denona, and this is the Jubilee palette. This also came in a BoxyCharm. The quality on this is amazing. The color story, though, it escapes me. Like, I did a look with this in my unboxing video, but like, if I were to pick this up any other day, I'd just look at it and be like, what do I even do with this? This is definitely a like make you think kind of palette. You have to be creative to do something good with this. But the quality is there, it is unique. I will give it points for that. So not my favorite, but it's not all the way at the bottom. Next, I am putting the Spanglish palette from Alamar Cosmetics. This is such a pretty color story. I have one other palette from Alamar Cosmetics. I don't find that the quality on this one is as amazing as the Reina del Caribe palette. I love the shimmers in that one so much, but it is pretty. This is definitely my kind of color story, purples, pinky, peaches. So we are kind of getting out of the like the bottom of the barrel. We are now moving into these are good, just not my favorites. So next I have a group of 3 palettes. This is the only position in the ranking that has more than one palette in it because honestly these are not even different enough from each other to qualify for different spots. But here I have the e.l.f. Bite Size palettes, and I have got the shades Pumpkin Pie, Berry Bad, and Cream and Sugar. These are really nice. Great quality for e.l.f. These kind of broke the internet. Everyone lost their minds for these palettes. These are good. These are $3. Really good quality for e.l.f. These kind of surprised me. So not bad at all. So I have a bunch of ColourPop coming up here next. If you saw my ColourPop ranking, these might not be in the same exact order. I was watching that video editing and I'm like, man, I should have swapped those. Ooh, did I really put that one before that one? So I'm not sure if these are the same ranking order, but this is just what I was feeling when I ranked these this time around. So next I am putting another shocker. We have the ColourPop X The Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, packaging on this is absolutely everything, but I am trying to rank off of quality and how often I use it, not the packaging, because ColourPop would just, they'd all be at the top. So this palette is another one that I find kind of hard to use. The mattes were very, very powdery. I'm not used to that from a ColourPop eyeshadow. And the color story, I do like that it is unique. I like that it kind of suits this more like spooky feeling, if you will. It's not an easy color story for me. This is another palette that I don't love the tones of the mattes. The more I put these mattes on my eyes, the more it looked like I just got punched in the face. I don't love these. I don't look at this palette and see a bunch of different looks that I want to try, and it's not my favorite. Not bad. Again, I see people loving this. Just not my color story. Next, I am putting the ColourPop Mint to Be. I think I ranked this a little higher last time, but upon reevaluation, it has been demoted. So this is really good quality. The really light pastel shimmers are beautiful, beautifully pigmented. It's just not something I really reach for all that often. This is not a standalone palette for me. I would probably use this as more of a pop of color. I'd probably reach in here for just a mint shimmer and use a different palette for my mattes. But this is nice. I like the quality on here for such light pastel colors. They show up really nicely. And next I am putting the ColourPop Going Coconuts. I think these swapped places if I'm not mistaken. This is a cult favorite. People absolutely love this. I find this to be a little boring. This is something I might reach for if I'm just like running to the store and I just want a little bit of something on my eyes, or if I just want some mattes to go along with maybe a single shadow. This is something I might use for that purpose, but is this like, oh my god, this is my everyday palette? No. It's a little bland for me, but it's good. I can see why people love it. Next, I am putting the Lilac You a Lot from ColourPop. This is a beautiful palette. The shimmers in here are absolutely gorgeous. Is this a standalone palette for me? No. I would want some different mattes, maybe something a little deeper, but I do like this. The shimmers in here, again, for very light pastel colors, they show up beautifully. They're pigmented. Purple is my favorite color, so that's going to give this a little push forward, regardless of how often I use it, so do like this one. Next, I am putting That's Taupe from ColourPop. This is a gorgeous palette. I wore this the other day, and I was like, wow. I don't reach for cool tones, and this is so good. The shimmers in here are so reflective. I can see the reflection in the monitor. This is a gorgeous palette. If you do wear cool tones a lot, this is like the perfect everyday palette for a cool tone lover. I think the quality on here is gorgeous. It's just not my favorite kind of undertone. I'm definitely more of a warm tone girl, but if I wasn't, this would be higher because this is so good. This is such a good little palette from ColourPop. So next I am putting this little 5-pan palette from Natasha Denona, and this is the Peak palette. This also came in a BoxyCharm. This is beautiful. This is a gorgeous, like, all-in-one look kind of palette. My only problem with this is that there's only one shimmer shade. But this is gorgeous. The mattes blend themselves. The shimmer shade is stunning. It just doesn't have enough shimmers for me. That's it. It's beautiful. This is like a perfect travel all-in-one kind of palette, just not sparkly enough. And next up here, I have another one from ColourPop. I am putting The Witching Hour from the Hocus Pocus Round 2 collaboration. This is an okay palette. This isn't my absolute favorite. I like that it is laid out kind of like one look in each row. That makes it very user-friendly, very easy to look at this and see a bunch of different looks that you can do. I very much enjoy the look I got out of this palette. I haven't reached for it since I did my video, so that's why it's a little bit lower, but the quality is here. It's really pretty. I love Hocus Pocus, one of my favorite Halloween movies, so that kind of helped it out a little bit, and packaging is everything. Next up, we have another ColourPop palette, and I am putting the Wild Child. This is like Going Coconut's spicy older sister. This is the everyday warm neutral palette for someone with a richer complexion. I love this palette. This is more my tones of neutrals. I tend to go for a very warm, kind of orangey brown, if that makes sense. I love this palette. Is it something that I reach for all the time? No, but if I want just a very warm, basic look, this is definitely one that I'm going to think about reaching for. I like this. It does have a pressed glitter, which I don't mind, but I think this is a gorgeous, gorgeous neutral palette. So next up here, I am putting the Lethal Cosmetics X Teresa is Dead, Lethal is Dead collaboration palette. I know it's a little bit far down, but that has nothing to do with Teresa as a person. I think she is such an amazing YouTuber. She's hilarious. Hear me out. So I think this color story is stunning. This is so beautiful. I love the selection of colors in here. I think the quality on the shimmers is amazing, but I find these mattes to be a little hard to work with. This is the only thing I've ever tried from Lethal Cosmetics, so it could just be because they are more saturated, colorful mattes. They might be a little more difficult, or I just don't work well with their formula. This is on me. It's not to the quality of the palette. It's just not a matte formula that I find all that easy to work with. Like I said, I love Teresa. I think the color story is gorgeous, and there's only 3 shimmers, which, you know me, I love the sparkle, so very beautiful color story, just not user-friendly for me. So next up, I am putting the Analog Cutie palette from Nabla. This is such a good little palette. This shimmer shade here is absolutely stunning. This is another great little warm neutral palette. This is kind of those orangey browns that I was talking about. This is like a perfect all-in-one warm neutral palette for me, and I can probably get a couple different looks out of this, even though it's only 6 shades. I definitely enjoy the quality on these Nabla palettes. And speaking of Nabla palettes, I am putting the Midnight Cutie palette here in our next spot, and this one beat out the neutral one, even though I definitely reach for neutrals more than colors. But the shimmers in this palette, these 2 blue shades, hi! These 2 blue shimmers in this palette, perfection. Don't rub on the camera. Anyways, the 2 blue shimmers in this palette, perfection. If I want a blue look, this is what I'm reaching for. I have used this in a Halloween look. It came out absolutely stunning. This is a blue I can see myself wanting to use, and I definitely don't reach for blue eyeshadows all that often, but this one deserves it. You gotta lay down, mama. You could stay here with me, but you gotta lay down, my mama. You gotta lay down, princess. So next up, I am putting the ColourPop X Powerpuff Girls palette. First of all, this packaging is so freaking cute. This is like my childhood, but this is a really solid little palette. Like, yes, it has some really bright, colorful mattes in here. It does have 2 pressed glitters, which again, I don't mind, but this is a really versatile palette, believe it or not. I have gotten some really pretty looks out of here. You can go neutral, you can go green, you can go all in and do Powerpuff Girl colors like I did in my first impressions video. This is cute. I actually reached for this more than I thought I would, so that is why it's making it a little bit further up here in the ranking. And next up from ColourPop, I am putting the collaboration palette with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This is my most recent ColourPop palette, but this is such a pretty palette. When I first saw this, I thought, okay, it's kind of boring. It could be a little brighter. It could have some more festive colors, but I have reached for this a few times. I think the tones in here are really pretty. It is a little bit more cool tone than what I am used to, but you can still get a nice warm look out of it. I did something really basic and kind of bronzy and neutral the other day. This is pretty, and it's great color pop quality. I think the darker colors, I have used both the green and this burgundy mattes, are beautiful. They blend it out nicely. They're not patchy or powdery at all, which is not easy for a very rich pigmented jewel tone matte. I like this, and take away the fact that it is a very Christmas palette, you can use this all year long. I definitely look forward to doing more looks with this palette. Now we are getting a little higher up in the ranking. I do have a kind of a set, but I am going to rank them separately. So I am going to put the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop Pistachio Palette in our next spot. The quality on these palettes is insane. I don't want to swatch anything, but this really rich emerald shimmer down here, breathtaking. These are so good. I see why these sold out and everyone was like clamoring to get the whole set. I only have 4 out of the 6, but I'm like kicking myself for not getting the red one and the orange one. Definitely would pick up the other 2 if I found them, because these are so nice. There's such a variety in here that I would definitely see myself reaching into this for like a pop of one of these shimmers. So if you love greens, you need this. Next up in the Sweet Shop bundle here, I am putting Bubblegum. So like I said, I don't have a ton of all blue palettes, but this one is so good. This one outranked the Nabla palette because there are 4 amazing shimmers in this palette. This color right here is one of the most beautiful blue shimmers in my collection. I don't reach for blues all that often, and definitely not my everyday kind of color, but this is so pretty. These are just good. They're great quality. Everyone is talking about BH Cosmetics for a reason. Next up here in our Sweet Shop bundle, I am putting Sugar Cone. This is like the perfect basic bitch neutral palette. If you reach for colors like this, if you just want an everyday wear the crap out of it palette, do the same look every day, this is the one. I am currently wearing this shimmer shade in my inner corners because the palette I was using didn't have a good inner corner shade. This color is everything. This is like the sparkliest, shiniest, most beautiful champagne inner corner highlight. This didn't rank higher because it's as boring and as basic as it gets, but it's good. It's good basic. Like, this is staple neutral palette quality. Definitely. You need this if these are your like everyday kinds of colors. So last up here in the Sweet Shop bundle, I am putting Cotton Candy. This is so pretty, so pretty. I love purple. I love pinks. This is just aesthetically pleasing. This is pretty to look at. This makes me happy. I, again, love the quality on these shimmers. Mattes are really nice as well. Probably not a standalone palette for me. I definitely wouldn't do a whole look with this. It doesn't quite go deep enough. I like a darker matte for my outer corner. I love these 2 light purple shimmers down here. This bubblegum pink is really nice. This is just a very pretty palette. This is like the colors that I visually gravitate towards. I love purples. I love pinks. This is just pretty. It makes me happy, so it's up here. Now I've got the last 3 short piles here, and you are gonna see a lot of favorite brands, a lot of favorite palettes. These are like the best of the best. So next up here, I am putting Give Me Glow Pastel Dreams. This palette is gorgeous. It's so pretty to look at. It's satisfying. And the quality matches the aesthetics of it. For pastel shades, these are really nice. No, I don't reach for pastels all the time. No, this is probably not a standalone palette for me, although I did a full pastel rainbow look using just this palette when I first tried it out. but Gimme Glow shimmers are some of my favorites. I have a ton of single shadows from them. I definitely see myself reaching into here for maybe a pop of color on the lid, maybe an accent shimmer. This is so pretty. I do love this palette. Definitely not something I reach for all that often, but the quality definitely carried it up to the top of this ranking. Next up, I am putting my Kaleidos Escape Pod palette. This is the first palette I ever tried from Kaleidos, if I can open it. First of all, Kaleidos packaging, some of the best in the game. This palette is gorgeous. It has a ton of these really sparkly topper shades. I think that is kind of what Kaleidos is known for at this point. This palette didn't make it all the way up to the top of the ranking because it does have more colorful mattes. I tend to reach for neutral mattes and a color on the lid. That's how I tend to prefer to wear colorful shadows, but these are gorgeous. These shimmers are everything. I'm telling you, if you love a sparkly kind of topper shade, you need Kaleidos in your life. So next up, I am putting the ColourPop Hocus Pocus Round 1 palette. I don't remember if this ranked quite this high in my ColourPop ranking, but upon further evaluation, this is just such a nice palette. It is a little more cool toned than I tend to reach for, and it has a bunch of these like mattes with sparkle in them that I don't think anyone loves. But this is such a beautiful palette. I can see myself using and abusing this next fall. This definitely reads like fall winter palette to me. I have enjoyed every look that I have done with this palette. I want to reach for this palette. This palette excites me, and it's good, and it's Hocus Pocus. So did that help it out a little? Probably. Next up, we've got another ColourPop palette, and I am putting the Creamsicle Quad. This palette only has 4 shades, and it is this far up in my ranking for a reason. This pink shimmer shade in here is the most gorgeous, sparkly, shimmery shadow. Oh my goodness, it's perfection. This quad is, for me, an all-in-one look. I got a crease shade, an outer corner shade, a lid shade, an inner corner shade. This is a perfect travel palette. Quality on these is so, so good, and it definitely earned its spot up at the top of this ranking. All right, we have made it to the top 8. I promise I'm not gonna make another MySpace joke. This is hard. These ones up here are like some of my favorite palettes in my collection. So ranking them was not easy. So coming in at number 8, I think I can handle saying the numbers from here to the end because I won't get confused if it's only 8 numbers. So at number 8, I am putting the Kaleidos Lunar Lavender palette. This is so good. I love the packaging on these. It's so different and unique. This is like my perfect purple eye look. You've got some neutrals, you've got some colorful mattes, and you've got 2 of the most beautiful purple shimmers in my collection. These are, again, that more sparkly topper kind of shade, but they're so stunning. This is so good. I want every single palette Kaleidos has ever made. These are amazing. And speaking of Kaleidos, coming in at number 7, I am putting the Flower Punk palette. This is a palette I am primarily wearing on my eyes today. First of all, the packaging on here is a work of art. I have never seen anything like this before. Definitely not the most practical thing I own, but this is so good. This color story is unlike anything that I own. This shade right here is what I have on my lids. Stunning. These 2 are that more topper kind of shade. They don't have a ton of base pigments, but they are duochromes. I don't know if you can tell. And this one is definitely more pigmented and more opaque. This is not their typical like topper shade kind of shadow, but this is so good. I did a look with the pinks and the mints. I did a couple looks with this side. I definitely love the green end of this palette. This is stunning. It does only have 3 shimmers, which I've been singing like a broken record. I prefer shimmers to mattes, but even with only 3 shimmers, this made it up to the top. So you know it's good. Speaking of Kaleidos, coming in at number 6, I am putting the Kaleidos x Angelica Nyqvist Club Nebula palette. Again, packaging, a work of art. These palettes belong in a museum. This is so beautiful. Everything about this collection was stunning. The cardboard box it came in. It came with a deck of cards that was really pretty as well. And this color story is unlike anything I own. It is unique. It has a ton of these sparkly shimmer shades that I love. This like mint green in the corner, probably one of my favorite shades out of all my Kaleidos palettes. It has a bunch of these like really rich jewel tone mattes, which is not something I tend to go for, so I love that I have colors that are unique to my collection in this palette. I get excited to use this. This is stunning. She did an amazing job on this collaboration. This is a gorgeous palette. It's gorgeous to look at. It makes me happy to use it. I get excited to try different looks with this palette, and it definitely earned its spot up at the top. So next up at number 5, I am putting the Sigma Code Rosa palette. This is so beautiful. This is the only palette I have ever tried from Sigma. I honestly bought it because it's called Code Rosa. I've never seen a palette named in Portuguese, so that's why I bought it, but this is such a good palette. If you love a pinky toned look, a kind of peachy toned look, a mauvey toned look, this is the palette for you. Oh no, I just dug my finger in the shade. Okay, don't do that to your eyeshadow palettes, but it also comes with a really good quality dual-ended brush. Sigma is obviously known for their brushes, and the fact that the brush in here is like great quality is definitely a bonus. This is gorgeous. I love this palette. I reach for this a lot. This definitely made it all the way up here at the top because of how often I reach for this, the sheer amount of use I get out of this palette. I know it doesn't look like I reach for it a lot, but it definitely is one of my favorite pink tone palettes. This is so good. It's a really great like staple pink tone palette. If this is your everyday kind of color story, this is definitely highly recommended. So we've only got 4 left, and these are the best of the best. The cream of the crop, the top of the top. That was so corny, I'm so sorry. So coming in at number 4, I don't know where my love affair with this palette came from. I don't know what it did to earn such a permanent spot in my heart. If you know, you know. This is the ColourPop Child palette. I love this palette. I love this palette. This is the reason I love green eyeshadows. I would never have imagined in a million years that I would love this palette as much as I do. This palette makes me want to wear green. I wear this shirt more often than I should because I just want to wear this palette. So maybe I should buy more green shirts. This is my perfect tone of green. This kind of olive, sagey green. Perfection. I never would have guessed in a million years that I love this palette as much as I do. But it's so good. I really love this palette. So that is definitely why I made it up here at number 4. Coming in at number 3, I am putting Mama Pat. I am putting the Pat McGrath Celestial Odyssey palette. This is a beautiful palette. You've got a ton of shimmer shades in here, which speaks to my soul. I love the variety of colors you get in here. You get some beautiful duochromes. There's a ton of different things you can do with this palette. Yes, there's only 4 mattes, but who's Matt? I don't know him. beautiful. I definitely look forward to using this palette. This is a palette that I want to reach for. I want to try. I want to see what different kind of looks I can get out of this. And the quality is, listen, it's expensive for a reason. Do you have to spend a lot of money to get good quality eyeshadows? No, absolutely not. But it's good. It's just good. It's beautiful. It's a great way to sample the Pat McGrath formula. This is the first and only palette I have ever tried from Pat McGrath, but these holiday palettes are where it's at. You want to try expensive eyeshadow without paying your firstborn child. This is so good. I love this palette. I'm so glad I have this. I have been turned into a believer with this palette. Maybe not a $125 palette believer, but a holiday palette believer for sure. So next up at number 2, if you know me, you might know what's been missing from this ranking so far. And I have lusted over this palette for years and years and years. It's definitely an older palette. The Natasha Denona Gold. This palette, it's a gold lover's dream. It is. Is it life-changing? Maybe not. Is it all I had built it up to be in my head? Yes, it's a great palette. I'm really happy I have this. It's gorgeous. I find myself reaching for it a lot. I want to use this palette. I try not to do too many like gold coppery looks on my channel because I want to do different looks and variety of colors for you guys, but this I want to reach for. This I can see myself using a lot. I will get tons of use out of this palette because I am a gold eyeshadow lover. This palette is, it's good. It's really good. I'm really, really glad I got my hands on this before it got discontinued, and that's why I made it up here at number 2. So coming in at number 1, you might be able to guess that my beloved has not yet been mentioned. I am putting the Adept Cosmetics Plain Jane palette. I love this thing. This is a palette full of sparkly, shimmery, special shades. I live for this kind of eyeshadow. This shade up here in the corner is a purple to blue duochrome of my dreams. This is what I want in a palette. Mattes are fine. I have got tons of matte shadows in my collection. I know people don't love an all shimmer palette. I am not people. I love this palette. I want every single shimmer shade that Adept Cosmetics has ever created. These are beautiful. I definitely want some more of their palettes. I have been lusting after their Ninhydrin, but I cannot pull the trigger on another one. These are a little bit pricey, but they are worth every penny. This is so good. This is probably my favorite palette in my entire collection. Not just the ones from this year, every palette I own. That's a bold statement, but I'm gonna say this might be my favorite palette of all time. And I'm so glad I discovered Adept Cosmetics this year. So that was it for me ranking every single palette that I tried in 2021. This was really difficult, but really fun to do. I would love to hear down in the comments what you guys' favorite palettes of the year are. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to come back for the rest of the 12 days of Christmas. And I hope that you would consider liking, subscribing, and coming back for some more content. Bye.